very exciting for me. I am fortunate to have a titan of American journalism in the studio with me, Mr. Roland Martin. Roland Martin, how you doing, sir?
I'm all good. What's happening?
They tell me there's an election going on. That's what they're saying. That's all the rage, apparently.
5 days. 5 days, election will be over. So election is actually going on now with early voting. And so it's huge.
You are in town for an event. I want to talk about that, but let's go back for a moment.
Yep.
Compare this to 2008 when we were on the verge of electing Barack Obama. How does the energy compare?
I don't think you can compare it because you got to remember in 2000, Obama announces in February 2007 that he was running for president. And then you go through 2007, long campaign. Then you go to Iowa in 2008. He wins the Iowa primary, loses New Hampshire to Hillary Clinton, wins South Carolina. And then you go through that long slog, and then he doesn't get the nomination until June. And then, of course, you have the general election. Totally different because Biden drops out in July. You have a truncated race. Then all of a sudden it's a sprint. And so it's a totally different dynamic when you actually look at the two. And you also have to factor in, and see, this is where people got to be honest. So if we factor in the fact that, yes, African-American, folks knew that was going to be difficult, but the fact that we elected an African-American as president before we elected a woman as president speaks to also American in terms of how America is. And so when you look at across the world, the UK, Germany, Philippines, Liberia, Mexico, the number of countries that have female leaders, we've never had one. Pakistan, India, all right, never the United States. And so that dynamic is also different. And I also believe that's one of the reasons why this race is so close, because she is a woman.
When Barack Obama gave a speech, a lot of folks thought he was talking down to or chastising African-American men because, per him, we're not showing the same kind of enthusiasm for him that we're showing for her. Your thoughts on that? Because he got a lot of smoke for that.
Yeah, he should have gotten smoke for it. First of all, it was wrong time, wrong tone, wrong place. Because you're not the candidate. And so that stepped on her message. Remember, the day before that, Donald Trump made his comments about Detroit. And so her campaign dropped a great ad the next day. The talk wasn't about him trashing Detroit. It was about Obama's comments. And those comments are still being talked about 3-4 days later. And so that's an issue. And the reason it was problematic for me is because, first, black women are the number one Democratic voters. Black men number 2. 1 and 2. So you have that. We saw the same conversation happen in Georgia. And then what happened? About Stacey Abrams. And then when the election happened, black men voted. Also, Obama has also acknowledged that in 2008, he got 95% of the black male vote. 5% voted Republican. 2012, 11% voted Republican. Black men were not happy with what Obama did. It's in the data. Mm-hmm. And so it was actually in that 2012 race that I first started saying, hey, Democrats, pay attention to this number because this is going to be a problem if you do not focus on it. And so what happened? Number went up in 16. Number went up in 20. And so he wasn't even acknowledging that he lost black male support. And so the problem is you can't solely frame this as brothers ain't voting for a woman. Are there black men who won't vote for a woman? Yes. Are there white men, Latino men? Yes. The reason that's a problem is because there was a gap when 2 men ran in 2012 and in 2020. So you can't solely put it on gender. So the issue that you're facing here is that what Democrats have not done is that micro-target African Americans. So if you study if you study the black electorate in politics, voters 65 and older self-identify as Democrats. That's the folks who were civil rights movement babies. I call myself a post-civil rights movement baby. I'm born in 1968. So what then happens? Well, I graduated college in December 1991. So my generation, we were going to college. Parents did not. We're now in different tax brackets. our concerns are different than previous generation. And so white Democratic strategists have a standard way in reaching black voters. Broad, single message, go through churches, NAACP, black civil rights groups, boom, there you go. The problem is every generation after that, it's a different way to reach them. So now you got a micro-target. So you're going to have brothers who have been in the criminal justice system and those who are not. You're going to have college educated, those who are not. You're going to have entrepreneurs, those who are not. And I remember when I was at Georgia for Warnock in 2022. I was interviewing a sister. She owned a cafe. And everybody kept talking about abortion. In an interview with her, she said, look, she said, I'm a woman. I care about reproductive rights. But I'm not having kids. What I do care about is this cafe and corporate tax rate. And folks are like, wow, hadn't thought about it. So again, the problem is if you're not micro-targeting your most important demographic, then they're going to make a choice. Not necessarily just to vote Trump or Republican. They may just sit out. And that right there is the issue because you have to communicate to different voters. So white Democratic strategists do not want to spend the additional resources. It's like, wait a minute, hold up. We've only been spending this to reach black folks. Why we have to double it? So they're still chasing the white Republican woman in the suburb and everywhere else, as opposed to, no. You better lock down your base. And that's where the trouble has been. Understanding how you have to message in a greater way and target that demo that you historically only had to do one shot. I can reach all of them. Black men, black women, we good. Now it's changed. This younger black voter, you have to compete for this voter's time and attention different than you did their mothers, grandmothers, grandfathers, and fathers.
Do you think that the Kamala Harris campaign itself understands that and maybe a reason why she put out her plan for black men?
Well, first of all, she's been doing that since she's been vice president, but she hasn't been covered. So she's done meetings and done conversations and has been focused on those issues since she was VP. Most media didn't pay attention to her. Okay, they weren't covering those things. I knew those things were actually happening. But you also got to remember when we talk about the Kamala Harris campaign, or the Harris president campaign. It was built for Joe Biden. So the entire team, you got field offices all across the country. You've got more than 50 in this state. So the campaign was constructed. So let me just bring it home. Imagine this studio and this show and your producer and the imaging and the marketing, everything revolves around another host. And then the next day, that host is fired or the host quit. So the entire infrastructure, so your name is on nothing or is secondary. How the staff was built was around that particular person. And so show still got to go on. So you're now trying to get them to understand you and understand how you operate, how you work, how you flow, how you talk, how you present yourself when the whole thing was constructed around another individual. And so that's also what makes this thing so crazy and unique because this campaign was constructed for Joe Biden and not Kamala Harris. She now becomes the central focal point. And so you got really two campaigns that are moving at one time and flowing, trying to make it work. And so that's what makes this so different from anything that any of us have ever seen, because the last time you saw anything like this, and you really didn't even see it then, was when Lyndon Baines Johnson opted not to run for president and Hubert Humphrey became the leading Democratic nominee. That was still early in the year. And so that was the last time you saw anything like this. And so they've done a remarkable job of being able to fuse the two, being able to, and the fact that he's still president of the United States, she's still vice president. And so it's not like, even when Obama ran, remember, he was a United States senator. So there were things that he could say and do. and it wasn't any big deal. She is still the vice president. So it's a totally different dynamic. And so it's been a remarkable job, the fundraising, how they fuse those things together, and you have those internal hiccups, things along those lines. But for them to be in the position that they are in right now is a remarkable achievement in the sprint that they have actually been running since July.
The energy, I would call it otherworldly. So I was here broadcasting. So the Republicans had their convention here in Milwaukee. And I keep in mind at that time, so Trump had the assassination attempt that Saturday. That convention started on Monday. And so the confidence that the Republicans had here at this convention was almost unspeakable because they just knew that their guy was going to win. Of course, Joe Biden was still in the race. But I saw them get incredibly deflated because they knew that Kamala Harris would actually be a much tougher candidate than Joe Biden would. And so the way she was able to, not just the donors, not just the volunteers, but it's the overall energy and spirit that she was able to bring to this campaign, I think helped the transition go a little bit smoother. Speaking of transitions, let's talk about the event that you were in town for. You're here for a Get Out the Vote event, correct?
Well, actually, no. Here's what was crazy. I actually here for an event, Milwaukee Power to win. So I'm keynoting at 1 o'clock.
Okay.
So I was coming for that. And so then it was like, all right, well, I'm coming for that. So maybe we come in early. We do a broadcast, Battleground State. And so put a call out, and I was like, hey, what can we do? And then reached out to some folks, and it was like, hey, they connected me with some community organizers. That's how last night came together. And then we did it from G Spot. And then the Harris campaign talked about this faith rally that's tonight. And I was like, all right, great. We'll go ahead and do that too. I said we'll broadcast from there. I got to be in Mobile tomorrow. And so I was like, let's go ahead and do that. And so, I mean, we're able to move and switch on a dime in terms of how we want to broadcast and put some stuff together. And so looking forward to that. President Bill Clinton will be speaking tonight at the event tonight. And so we'll be broadcasting that. And while I'm there, I'm also going to be doing Ari Melber's show on MSNBC. And so, again, I'll be doing that as a simulcast on my show, too. So it's a whole lot. It's a whole lot of moving parts. So we're sort of used to making that happen. And what I've been doing is, by doing these two shows, I was in North Carolina a couple of weeks ago. I was in Philadelphia. I was in Pennsylvania before that. And so I was in Dallas. So we've been going around the country, and again, hearing from folks directly, getting a sense of what they're talking about. So we were at Lincoln University in Pennsylvania, Lincoln, Pennsylvania, 2 churches in Pennsylvania, 3 cities in Fayetteville State, Elizabeth City State, Rocky Mount in North Carolina. Because when I watch these networks, first of all, I'm sick and tired of these, man on the street interviews, I went to a basketball court. And I just hate these conversations because they're not. They really get on my nerves. They really get on my nerves, and I hate just how they're even done. And they're not policy oriented. They're not focused on that. And so we wanted to have different types of conversations, and then now take that, drive it out to our social media, things along those lines. And so it's been good. Listen, and also we were at Edward Waters University in Jacksonville. So we've been really hearing from folks from different parts of the country and hearing them speak about what's important to them and this election. And so now it's a turnout game. Now it's a matter of people maximize their power. And for me, this city is critically important. I think about the 2022. 50,000 fewer people in Milwaukee voted in 2022 than they did in 2020. If those 50,000 people in Milwaukee vote in 2022, you do not have a MAGA insurrectionist United States Senator Ron Johnson. Mandela Barnes is a United States Senator. And so what I'm constantly saying to African Americans, we have to maximize our voting power. We should be voting at least 70% of our eligible voting base. We do that, we sweep elections. I'm talking Milwaukee, I'm talking Detroit, I'm talking Atlanta, I'm talking Philadelphia, Chicago, Houston, Charlotte, all across the country, because we're leaving power on the couch. And so people are complaining about stuff. Even when I have conversations with Gen Z and millennials, I said you can't complain about old people in politics when the group that actually votes in the biggest numbers are people 65 and older. If millennials and Gen Z actually voted their numbers, you would have nothing but millennials and Gen Z in office.
I think it also helped with the age difference, right? So Joe Biden was the oldest candidate. Now it's transitioned to Donald Trump. And Kamala Harris has a way with not just her words, her actions, but also with a culture that I think brings more younger voters in, that gets them more encouraged.
But see, but I want a younger voter to not, and actually I want any voter, but especially I want a younger voter to not be wrapped up in personality. And I know that's hard because a lot of people do. Republicans are wrapped up in the cult of personality of Trump. The reason I say that is because I don't have to be in love with a candidate to understand what the stakes are. Because what I have to start from, the premise I must begin with is somebody is going to win. Somebody. We live in a two-party system. It's Republican, Democrat. So it's rare that an independent will win. So what we have to understand is, what are my interests? I don't have to love you. I don't have to like you. But what are my interests? And I think what happens is, on the progressive, Democratic, liberal, because you got all folks on that side, there's a lot of, they need to love me. I need to fall in love with them. I need to feel them. Republicans are like, no, power.
Yeah, they take marching orders.
But the voter also goes, no, power. Who is in power?
It's because young people, they don't necessarily have the lived experience, right? They can't tell you how taxes and inflation can impact them. But as they get older and they mature and they become more responsible.
Actually, they can if you ask the second and third question. See, the problem is they are impacted by taxes. They are. Because we have to make it plain to every voter. See, so when I'm talking to voters, matter of fact, last night on our panel, we recorded it, so we're going to air it either tonight or tomorrow. A young brother was talking, and so he was like, me and my other folk, we all about revolutionary. I was like, okay, we need you to unpack that. What does that mean? Well, get rid of this whole system. I said, how you going to get rid of this whole system? How? I had a brother who hit me on Instagram, and he said, listen, until they get rid of the electoral college, I ain't voting. I said, okay. Are you aware that the electoral college is in the Constitution? And the only way you can change a constitutional amendment is for the House and the Senate to approve a constitutional amendment, and you can't do that with a simple majority. It must be signed by the president. And then after it's signed by the president, it still ain't law, right? Because it now has to go to the states.
Get ratified, yeah.
Which is then voted upon by state legislators who are elected. I said, so let me break it down. You want a system changed that is only changed by elected officials, but you not going to vote until it gets changed, which means somebody else is voting on those very people. I said, that's about the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. And so that's what we have to push folks on, to get them to understand that you may be a young person, 1835, you are absolutely impacted by taxes every single day. You're impacted by climate every day. You're impacted by policy every single day. So you can't walk around and just think, well, look, I'm good. None of that impacts me. Actually, it does. And so we have to actually make this thing plain. We got to have what I call Schoolhouse Rock 2.0. We got to get people to understand that even if you're 16 or 17 years old, laws are being made that are going to have an impact the moment you become an adult. And I think we don't have a lot of those conversations where we don't put, in the words of the late Joe Madison, we don't put it where the goats can get it, where we can break it down in a way where a person goes, hold up, I ain't realized that. It happens every single day. If you live in a neighborhood and people are speeding up and down the street and you want speed bumps on your street, you cannot unilaterally go out and build you some speed bumps. You literally have to have the city do that. That's politics.
How much time you got, Roland? I got to take a break. I want to ask you one more question. So we're going to take a break. Talking to a titan of American journalism, Mr. Roland Martin is here in the studio at 101.7 The Truth. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Don't touch that dial. The Truth with Sherwin Hughes will be right back on 1017 The Truth, The Truth app, and 1017thetruth.com.
Roland Martin is in the studio. Here's a question I want to ask you. Uh-oh. Go ahead and sing it if you want to.
Jeff Kemp.
5 days left. Ain't nobody talking policy. You're absolutely correct. In fact, tomorrow night we got the concert of all concerts down on the lakefront. You got the Isley Brothers, Glorilla, MC Light. It's going to be a big blowout.
Indeed.
These last few days. Has she made the case? Because Donald Trump is an anomaly, and I'm not going to give him any airtime. But has she made the case? Because there are some voters that may have voted for Joe Biden in 2020. Well, I don't like Trump. I'm just going to go with the alternative because at least that person is not Donald Trump. She had to do more than that. Do you think that she's more than just not Donald Trump?
I mean, first of all, I think when you look at what the vice president has laid out, her closing argument on Tuesday, we were there broadcasting live, phenomenal. Stagecraft was phenomenal. Calling him a petty tyrant, making it clear that if he gets in, he has an enemies list, and he does. And she says, I have a things to do list. And so it's not even close when you look at the two. When you look at the fact that she has a very comprehensive housing plan. People in this country keep complaining about housing, and they should. What people have to understand is that we had a home foreclosure crisis in 2008. That's also what paved the way for Obama to get elected. We had a housing crisis 2009, 10, and 11. Black wealth, 53% was wiped out due to the home foreclosure crisis. But here was the other problem. Because of the housing crisis, between 2010 and 2019, only 6.5 million homes were built in America. In the previous decade, 14.5 million were built. So we had a housing deficit, stock deficit, in 2010, 2019. Now the next decade, same thing. We're building fewer homes. Greater demand. And so now, then you have private equity owning almost 40% of all single-family homes. And so now people are being forced to rent. So she has an actual housing plan. When you talk about health care, you talk about expanding Medicaid expansion. You look at capping prescription drugs, $2,000 a year, insulin, $35 a month. That's real stuff. I think for so many people, and I hear people say, "Oh my God, but the economy was so much better, under Trump." First of all, that was a Biden's economy. But I gotta take those same people back. What was the economy in 2009, 10, and 11 under Obama? It was awful. I mean, we were losing 500,000 jobs a month. The economy had to be rebuilt. Obama, Biden did that. Trump crashes the economy, horrible COVID response. Biden, Harris has to rebuild that. So it's sort of like you got a kid, and the kid was like, "Man, 5 years ago, we had a great Christmas." Yeah, we did have a great Christmas 5 years ago. But 4 years ago, we got evicted. So 3 years ago, Christmas wasn't great. 2 years ago, Christmas wasn't great. This year, Christmas is okay. Now, do I prefer great over okay? Yeah. But I can't ignore we got evicted. See, people are operating from this attitude as if COVID didn't happen, as if the fallout from COVID didn't happen. I had my backpack is in the hotel. I have a Cam Link card, which allows for me to plug up my video camera to my laptop to be able to live stream. That Cam Link card is $119. During COVID, that Cam Link card was $1,100 because nothing was being manufactured. Plants had shut down. So the demand for that card skyrocketed, and so did the price. And so when people say, well, gas was lower in 2019, you're right. And it was lower in 2020 because nobody was driving during COVID. I mean, and so again, people have to recognize we literally went through a 100-year pandemic that the entire world shifted. And here's the most important thing. No other major economy has recovered faster than the United States. Today, inflation is at 2.2%. Every other country, Japan, Germany, Italy, England, we could keep going, their economies have not recovered. We have actually recovered. That is because of the policies of Biden Harris. And so now you got to ask the question. Now, wait a minute. Do I want to keep half of the team that fixed this thing to keep moving forward, or do I want to go back to the dude who left it in tatters? To me, this ain't that hard.
But the polls, for some reason, we can go on and on about the polls. All I'm saying is it shouldn't be this close. However, I'm getting some very encouraging early vote data where women are far outpacing men. And that does not mean the Republican women aren't voting as well, but I think the writing is on the wall where Donald Trump is going to be in a lot of trouble.
But you can also look at the 2022 midterms and see the impact of the Dobbs decision on the female vote. And so that absolutely matters. And that's one of the reasons why he is trying to drive the male vote to sort of counter that. But what I need our people to understand, and when I say black people can literally change elections if we vote our numbers. If we if you hit that 70%, I'm telling you. Detroit, a perfect example. Obama, 50% Detroit turned out even with Obama. If Detroit hit 70%, it ain't even a conversation what happens in the rest of Michigan. You win. So that, to me, is what I'm talking about, how we have to understand how we can shift the politics of a state and a country. It doesn't mean that white voters doesn't matter, Latino voters doesn't matter, but I'm talking about sheer numbers. Biden Harris won this state by 20,000 votes. What did I say in 2022? 50,000 folks didn't vote who did in 2020. Trump won the state by 10,000 votes in 2016 against Hillary Clinton. Now, imagine if you have a church, if you have an organization, and you say, I touch 500 people. I need those 500 to go get one person. That's 1,000 people right there. Elections literally can shift with that. This is a margins election. It will be narrow margins in North Carolina, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Arizona, Nevada. So if anybody listening who thinks my vote doesn't matter, you are absolutely crazy. Your vote will matter, and it's to the point where Obama won North Carolina by 14,100 votes. That was literally 1 to 2 votes per precinct in the whole state. So we got to understand that's how thin the difference between winning and losing.
More important than ever to really run up the score. And I agree with you. If we vote our power and our numbers, it'll be close, but it won't be as close to where the Republicans are going to call foul. They're going to call foul anyway.
First of all, look at 2020. Okay, Trump did a partial recount in Wisconsin, only in Milwaukee. And let me just be real clear. And the reason Donald Trump is targeting black people. January 6th was about black people.
The Haitian migrants.
No,
about black people
me
too.
Here. What were the 4 places he complained about in 2020? Fulton County, Atlanta, Philadelphia, Detroit, Milwaukee.
That's right.
Donald Trump. So if you are black, any other ethnicity in Milwaukee, let me remind you, Donald Trump paid for a partial recount in Wisconsin in 2020, only in Milwaukee. They were questioning the veracity of black people. The Michigan leader said in 2020, let's count all the votes in Michigan except Detroit. He alleged cheating in Philadelphia, cheating in Atlanta. That's why those 2 workers had to sue Rudy Giuliani. That was targeting black voters. So I say you make that same person pay by handing him a second L. And that way he can go to Mar-a-Lago and suck on his thumb and get mad that black voters sent his ass home a second time.
And we're going to create another black job. Roland Martin.
Yes.
An absolute pleasure,
Create
sir.
the ultimate black job.
thank you for being here, and we appreciate you, all the work
Appreciate
that you're doing on this campaign. So,
All right. Want
all
to see
the
folks
best.
at the Faith Rally tonight.
All right. The Truth with Sherwin Hughes on 101.7 FM. We'll be right back.
The Truth with Sherwin Hughes returns after this on 101.7 The Truth, The Truth app, and 1017thetruth.com.